It's 7 o'clock, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. First off, my name is Matt Simpson. I am on the Ohio to Erie Trail board. I represent the Delaware County section of the Ohio to Erie Trail. I want to welcome all of you to our third webinar in our winter series. This particular webinar is preparing for your first bicycle tour. We've got a couple great speakers today that have done a ton of touring in their life. So we're excited to hear what they have to say and their advice. We'll be recording this webinar so that if you have folks who missed out on it, they'll be able to log in and see it on our YouTube channel. And I think just allow a few more folks to check in. Jody, can you share our poll? A couple poll questions just on where you're from and how much touring you've done.
Apologies.
Okay. If you click on your poll, can folks see it?
I cannot see it yet.
There we go.
I may need to leave and come back. It saying that my poll is inactive, but I looked at it before and it was fine. So
I saw it come up, so I was able to come up and vote on it.
I submitted one answer.
Yeah, I'm getting it too. And it looks like quite a few folks are seeing it and doing their polls. Give it another minute or so, and then we'll show the results.
Yeah, I guess I'll leave and come back and see if I can launch it.
Jody, I can't see it. I think other folks can as well, just so you know. We got 39 participants have answered. Okay. Well, I'll share the results. We've got about 40, a little over 40 people who responded. About 51% have never done an overnight tour, but are looking forward to it. We've got 14% that are novice and have done at least one overnight trip. 12% have done a weekend. 16% that have done 4 to 7 days. And about 10% have done over a week. So we got a nice wide range of folks with different levels of experience. So with that, I think I want to introduce our two speakers this evening, Randy Kronk and Bill Flaherty. Randy is a retired psychology professor with 41 years of experience in bicycle touring and organizing bicycle tours. He celebrated his 40th anniversary of bicycle touring last year with his 8th crossing of the United States. During his tenure as a professor, he's taken over 300 students on 1,100-mile tours, 13 of them in the American Southwest and 2 in Florida. He has personally taken 71 domestic and international bike tours totaling over 72,000 miles. The majority of them, 37, are self-contained and self-organized. Those 71 tours have included 6 tours of over 3,000 miles, 8 crossings of America, 2 east and west, and 6 north-south, 8 European tours, and 2 times he's done the Ohio to Erie Trail. Over the 48,000 miles, he is it's been all self-contained, and he has cycled in 94 countries. For the past 18 years, he has served as the president of the Co2 Gap Trail, the nonprofit that develops and maintains the section of the Ohio to Erie Trail in Knox County. Randy, thank you very much for presenting this evening. And our second speaker is Bill Flaherty. Bill loves all forms of self-propelled adventures, from triathlons, canoe trips, backpacking, and multi-month bike trips. He also enjoys helping others live their outdoor dreams. He is currently doing this at Ernie's Bike Shop in North Canton, Ohio, where he works part-time with helping customers, fixing bikes, and leading overnight bike trips. Bill got his start when he was about 21 and his brother was 17 when they rode from their hometown of Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C., and then south along the Atlantic coast to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. Camping the whole way, no GPS, no cell phones, no ATMs. I don't know how he does that. I can't even imagine it. Right? How's it going now for Bill? In 2020, he rode from the U.S.-Canadian border to the U.S.-Mexican border on the Great Divide mountain bike route. He did this with two strangers he met on Adventure Cycling's Companions Wanted website. They followed jeep trails, single tracks, dirt and gravel roads all along the Continental Divide for 2,500 miles. The scenery was stunning and changed every day, and the challenges also changed every single day. In 2021, after living in Ohio for almost 30 years, Bill finally rode the Ohio to Erie Trail. So adventure in his backyard. Came late, but got it done. So with that, I want to introduce Bill and Randy, and I think Randy's going to start off this evening and tell us a little bit about his experiences with bike touring.
Good evening. It's good to see some faces and a whole lot of names here on this webinar. I really enjoy helping people accomplish their dreams with bicycling. I'm going to probably dig a little bit less into my own personal travels around the world and a bit more into my 30 years of leading university students on tours. As Matt suggested, I did 15 tours of 1,100 miles each and helped over 300 students. And I want to probably, as I related to them, most of them being novices and some of them turning into pretty experienced cyclists, as I got to know them, kind of as a reflection of the people we have here tonight, the novice people plus the experience. And then that creates challenges if you're taking novices and experienced cyclists and having them ride together, having patience and understanding with each other. I'm also going to probably be weaving into my psychological territory here at the start here. I'd say that some of the barriers to accomplishing your first tour are as much psychological as they are technical or physical. And I want to start with a real positive note. Let yourself savor the anticipation of your first tour. Often the anticipation can be a bit rosier than your first tour. You can plan for months, and a 3-day tour can be fraught with headwinds and rain. And that anticipation is important to savor. So go ahead and embrace it, share your dreams with others, and enjoy it. Second, I would suggest that you manage your expectations. If you have really grandiose expectations about your first tour, a really big tour, high mileage, fast pace, you're kind of setting yourself up for some disappointment, for some frustration, perhaps injury. On the other hand, the lack of expectations, just to say, and I've had students that after I helped them realize they could ride 1,100 miles from San Francisco to San Diego and then across the desert to Phoenix, they'd like, well, I'm just going to go for a big tour. Well, what's your destination? Well, I don't know. I'm just going to ride till I'm done riding. Well, the lack of a goal comes with its risks too. Having a vision and and some sub goals can really be helpful. So a balance between expectations, I'm going to accomplish X, Y, and Z, versus, well, I'm just going to see how it all shakes out. I think you're best to find a middle ground. I always think that establishing a goal like riding the Ohio to Erie Trail, or like my goal last summer to fly to Pensacola and ride to the Canadian border, I think some end goal really helps you stay motivated. But sub goals can really be helpful too. And when I thought about this, I flashed back to a trip that was, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 years ago. I went from Shannon, Ireland to Paris, and it really had multiple little tours in it, like to ride across Ireland. That in itself would have been an accomplishment, from Shannon to Belfast, from the West Coast to the East Coast, and then take the ferry over to Scotland, and then ride across Scotland to Edinburgh, and then ride Edinburgh down to Plymouth, and then take the ferry over to France. And then I'd never seen Normandy, and as an American citizen, I thought that would be really important. And it really was a meaningful experience. So that became the next goal, and then finally to Paris. When I left the Shannon airport, I didn't know where I was going to spend the first night. Having really rigid schedules, it has a strength to it. For some of you, you like to have things planned out. Having a plan kind of reduces anxiety, but that sort of rigidity when you're cycling with weather, your personal health or wellness or fitness, mechanical issues, riding in a group, not being too rigid can be really, really helpful. I'm a warm shower host, and one of my recommendations is for you to join warm showers. It's a way to get to know other cyclists. Warmshowers.org. I suspect many of you know about it. You can host cyclists at your place, but then they also offer hospitality to you. And not too long ago, I had a group of 4 people here, and one of them was really riding much too hard and they set up these hospitality places along the way, and it really didn't accommodate for some serious knee pain that one of the people was dealing with, to have a really fixed schedule. I'd say that another important mental kind of muscle to build is called self-efficacy. If you've never taken an overnight tour, you question yourself. Do I have what it takes? Can I do this? Can I finish this? Can I accomplish this? And self-efficacy is when you push your bike out the door and say, I can do this. And getting from, I don't know if I can do this, or even perhaps a weaker stance is, I could never do this, or I can't do it. I suspect you're in the webinar tonight because you have some belief in your ability to accomplish this. And the way to build self-efficacy about bicycle touring is to start off small with these one-nighters. Riding day rides is helpful. You need to get to know your bicycle. Bill's going to review that in more detail about the nuts and bolts, because I don't care if you're 5 miles or 50 miles from a bike shop. If you have a flat tire, you need to be able to attend to that yourself. The Ohio to Erie Trail, you might find a good Samaritan, but some of the places I go, if you couldn't sort out basic mechanics with changing a spoke or a broken chain or a flat tire, or securing something that's rattling, it could lead to kind of a catastrophic failure. I'd say that ask yourself this question on your first tour is, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? More than one of my students has set off on a tour by themselves, and then within a number of days, they've kind of bailed because of loneliness. They've never spent so much time by themselves. And for some of you, you're kind of perhaps on the introverted end of things, and that's not really the issue. But ask yourself your what your own psychological strengths and weaknesses are when you come into this. And on the kind of the mental preparation, I'd say, do your best to overcome stranger anxiety. I can't tell you how many blessings have happened because I've talked to a stranger. They know kind of the best food. Strangers have told me, like last summer, I embrace stealth camping or free camping or wild camping. I don't know what you call it. For example, on that trip across America last summer, I didn't pay for camping one night. And it's strangers that'll tell you, oh, the township firehouse is 4 miles up the road. You could camp beside that or behind that. They'll tell you about those things. Or, hey, 6 miles up there is the Ohio River, and people camp down by the bridge there along the river all the time. You'll probably find fire rings down there and a place you can pitch your tent. So talk with strangers, and some of them are going to say, come to my place, camp in my backyard. I've slept on yachts. I've slept in Buddhist monasteries. I can't tell you how many churches I've slept in when it's hot and humid. To talk with someone tending a churchyard, they'll say, hey, you can sleep in our basement. It's cool down there. So I like to embrace the free camping. Partly it's quiet, dark skies. It's surrounded by nature. Now, a little bit on logistics. I mentioned this about getting to know basic mechanics and bike parts. One way to bring this along is, well, YouTube really helps now. You have a broken chain, you can check it out if you have cell phone reception, but not all places that on the Ohio to Erie Trail would even have cell signal. Riding with experienced cyclists and picking their brains is a good source of gaining some knowledge about bicycle touring. When I talked about more experienced cyclists, a number of years ago, I rode from Milan, Italy to Athens. And Milan allowed me to ride across northern Italy and go to Venice. And at a bakery that morning, Oscar was coming by with a loaded bike, and I yell out to him, and he's from Spain. We proceeded to ride the next 2 weeks together, all the way to Thessalonica. His English was better than my Spanish, but we did quite well together. And if you're thinking of a European tour, former Yugoslavia, Croatia, Bosnia, Montenegro, it's absolutely stunning. But he was going to detour around Albania. He was like, I'm like, why? He's like, well, the mafia. And I had gotten press that some Albanian minister was driving a stolen German Mercedes, and he was worried about the mafia. And I'm like, we're on bicycles. We don't look wealthy. It'll be fine. And he joined me, and we had a wonderful day. That was my birthday in the capital of Albania. And of course, all my childhood, Albania was one of the most closed societies. So it was like getting to have some of that forbidden fruit to go through Albania. I really recommend Adventure Cycling. They have done, if you're not a member, it's the only organization dedicated to bicycle touring in the United States. They have wonderful publications, their maps. I think they're getting close to about 50,000 miles worth of cycle routes in the United States. They've actually got something in all 50 states now. Some of them might be mountain biking routes, but they tell you where campgrounds are, where bike shops are. They pick kind of lonely roads. So for example, they reroute. First time I went across North Dakota, just kind of went across till after all the oil boom out there and the fracking, they decided they needed to reroute it. So they're in tune with that. But there's some absolutely splendid routes that, for example, the Pacific Coast route down Washington, Oregon, and California is just absolutely stunning to be on the coast there. I take my bike on airlines. I'm not frightened to do that. I generally domestically use Southwest Airlines. I make my own box, so I keep the front wheel in it, so my fork is not going to get bent. With Southwest, probably 8 times I've put it on there. Well, probably 12 or 15 times, because to fly to Seattle and then finish in San Diego is 2 trips with the bike box. Separate boxes. I just get boxes from a local bike shop and put them together. It's $75, but for one way. But check with your airline about your ability to take a box. I really recommend traditional panniers. I know Bill's got kind of a stealth-looking set of equipment on his bike back there that's designed to go a little bit faster and lighter. Panniers are cheap. They're highly functional. And if you're going to have weight on your bike, distribute that, as Bill has illustrated, across your bike. Just don't put nothing but weight on your rear panniers, for example. I've literally seen people heading off on tours with an extra rear rack, anticipating that they would be breaking a rack. But if you've got all your weight on the back, your bike is not going to handle near as well as if you have your weight distributed. One of the things I like about front panniers is it puts the weight with a lowrider on your axles, and that really keeps your center of gravity down low, which is good for handling. Don't overpack. Some people think, well, I might need this, and so maybe I should take it. Might is not strong enough to pack it in my book. Keep the weight down. Make sure you have adequate gearing. I know I'm a little bit old school. I'm running a triple with a 9-speed in the rear end, partly because I own the bike and it's paid for, and 27 gears is enough. If I had a chance for a new bike, I might look at maybe a roll-off, but that's a lot of money right now for me. But to take kind of a 15-year-old bike that only has a double on it, Ohio to Erie, you can probably get by with that. But if you get off route, actually you'll regret it when you get up to Holmes County, only having a double, because the hills are steep up there. Not a lot of them. It's just a small segment of Ohio to Erie, but make sure you have enough gearing. With security, I travel a lot alone. And so I tell folks, you're married to your bike. You got stuff hanging on it. People aren't going to take it for a joyride, but there's times I pull up to a grocery store and kind of scan the environment and say, no, I'm not leaving it here. But most often I'll push it in the door and find a clerk and lean it against the dog food or something like that and get okay to leave it there and do my shopping, because with your stuff hanging on it, you feel a little bit vulnerable on it. Today, there's a lot of opportunities for lightweight gear. Tents are lightweight. One of the little tidbits of advice that I've learned over the years is I travel with a 2x2 piece of Tyvek. For one thing, you can cut off a little bit or use a dollar bill to boot a tire if you slice it, put a hole in it. But my little 2x2 piece of Tyvek creates my front porch on my tent. So when I crawl out, I'm standing on something clean, and put my shoes and socks on. And if I'm going to take a water bottle shower in the dark, or I can stand on that and not make mud. And it weighs nothing. You probably got something shipped to your house in the last few months that was actually made of Tyvek. Sleeping pad technology is a huge improvement. I now travel with Thermarest Neo Air. It is 3 inches of luxury, and it weighs less than a pound. And you don't get good sleep, your trip's not going to be much fun. In addition to a sleeping bag that matches the forecast, a couple of years ago, I went across Utah, Nevada, and Colorado in October and September, and I had temperatures in the 20s at night. I needed my heavier down bag, but if I were doing the Ohio to Erie Trail in May, I'd take a lighter bag and travel with a sheet too, because the sleeping bag might be too warm. Cooking gear, I don't travel with much. I take a cup and a spoon and a can opener, and I'll eat cold food, and I love to eat out. It's a bit more of a challenge during COVID, but I will carry an alcohol stove. Just you can Google that and find YouTubes on alcohol stoves made out of a soda can or a beer can, and use yellow heat that you get at the Napa store, and you can have a cup of coffee in 90 seconds in the morning with that, and it absolutely weighs nothing, and it's essentially free. When I'm traveling in really inclement places like Yellowstone or Rocky Mountains, and you can have some serious weather, I also make sure I have really top-notch rain gear, especially rain jacket. You get hypothermic, and that's dangerous. Your safety level really diminishes. So invest in quality rain jacket. And I also travel with rubber boots because I've been in rain 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, and I get my rubber boots from actually a motorcycle retail outlet because they're super lightweight. They're probably the size of a Big Mac, but they go up over my shins and they'll keep my feet dry. I gave up toe clips and clipping in for clipless pedals probably 10 years ago for touring, and just use flat pedals and bicycle shoes, but that makes things a bit easier. Well, I've taken up my third of the program here, I think, and Matt's going to field some questions after Bill shares with us about the nuts and bolts here of the mechanics of bicycling.
Yeah, so thanks, Randy. Great information. And I will be covering some of that same material types of things here. We've talked a lot about some really big trips here, some across the country trips, some European trips, riding across the Rockies. So where's the best place for everybody here to get started? And I think you've got one of the absolute best trails right in your backyard here on the Ohio to Erie Trail. And so one of the things you can do is go ahead and get started. And I would encourage everyone here to start small and start now. So if you're not a camping person, that's okay. Pick something in a hotel. And we're going to be going over some different kinds of gear, but you want to definitely get started. Test everything that you're going to be riding. So you want to test every bag, everything that you put on there, even if it's just ride around the block or ride for an hour, make sure it stays put. Practice pitching your tent, practice starting fires, practice changing a tire, practice riding in the rain. Do all these things when you have a chance to do that 15 minutes from your home. So if something goes bad, you can do it when you really need to. So let's get started and start talking about bikes here. This is the bike that I used when I finally rode the OTET trail last year. I also had a bag in the front, and that is my bedroom. So that's basically the setup. And the reason I chose that bike is because I already had it. We had a global pandemic going on. I had an endurance road bike and I had a hardtail mountain bike, so I had to pick one and go with it. My endurance road bike doesn't have any mount points on it like a real touring bike. So I just use my bike packing gear because it fits on there without any mount points. And because of that, I try to keep everything very small. So whether you're traveling and staying in hotels or camping out, you're going to have to carry some things on your bike. And one of the things that I did learn in that big trip, the second most important thing on a long trip is take care of your bike. The first most important thing is take care of yourself. So brush your teeth, wash your face, make sure your sunscreen goes on, take care of all those things, no excuses, make that happen. So let's start first about talking about what's going to be on your bike. So when you go for just a day ride, there's some things that you should always have. You always want to have one spare tube. And that spare tube, we always like to put them in a pint freezer bag, put some powder in there and shake it up with the baby powder. And that keeps it from getting worn out as you're riding along that way. So that's one thing that you need. That'll usually go on the bottom. You'll want a multi-tool. So I have this, the Crank Brothers tool. It sort of has all the wrenches all in one place. The thing I like about this is I'm not going to drop one Allen wrench down in the snow or in the leaves somewhere and not be able to find it. You want to take a knife with you, and you'll notice that when we say a knife, it's a small knife. It's that big. You know, this is not Crocodile Dundee. If you have multiple people, you can start to split some gear between these people. So one person might take the multi-tool, and the other one might take a very small pair of pliers. So this is the Leatherman Squirt multi-tool, has the pliers on it. I have a pair of scissors in here. There's a knife blade on it. The nail file is more useful than you might think. But the idea is to keep everything as small as possible, and then take these items that you're going to need and sort of keep them up in this top pocket where you can get at them. So as Randy was saying before, if you start to hear something, if something goes wrong with your bike or doesn't sound right, stop and take care of that right away. So if something's rubbing, stop, check your straps. If someone in front of you is riding and they have something going on, stop and check their straps or check to see what's rubbing. And so the other thing you're going to want to do is when you start riding, first thing you got to have your helmet on. So wear your helmet. I've seen people go down, they're just riding to the outhouse and they don't put their helmet, they go down there. So helmet, I really like the mirror on there. And you want daytime running lights, which lets everybody else see you so that you don't get hit. So, and these are things you just want to have on your bike all the time, every day as you're riding around. Other things to carry, we talked about chains. So like a small piece of chain that's probably bigger than I need. And you'll also want one of these master links. And this sort of slips into one piece of the chain, goes over here, and you can snap it and pull it together. So if you would break a chain, you can knock the bad link out with the chain breaker on your multi-tool and snap a new one of those in. These are very light. So it doesn't take much weight at all. The other one I like is just a handful of little nuts and bolts. So some 2, 3, 4 millimeter Allen bolts, just so you have them when you need them. And I always keep some extra money in my bag, just riding around on a day ride. So it keeps that extra money in there. We talked about carrying the spare tube. You'll need a way to inflate that also. So there are multiple ways to do that. I like the pump. I like this Lezine pump that has the hose on it. So I can flip the hose around that way, and then that threads on to the bike, so I'm not shaking it loose every time I pump. And of course, the other thing I don't leave home without is Gorilla Tape. So just take a couple turns of Gorilla Tape, put that around your pump or put that around something else, so you have it when you need it. And I've used that to fix glasses and all kinds of other things. So the pump's a good way to go. Other ways to inflate things, they make these CO2 inflation devices. And this is a single-use item. You thread it on there, it punctures the can, and then you press it on the bike and inflate the tire that way. And any of this stuff that you're going to use, test it at home. So there are these skills that you want to practice on a daily basis so that when it comes time to use them, you know what you're doing. And every time you practice and do one of these things, you get better at it, but you also feel more secure. You're not going to worry about getting a flat in the middle of nowhere if you know you changed a tire at home and you feel good about doing that. And it's always going to happen in the rain, in the mud, in the middle of nowhere. So practice at home. Take it on, take it off, make sure that you feel comfortable doing that. Take a maintenance class at your bike shop. That's another great way to learn some different skills. Some other things you can take with you to help change your tires. You've got one tube, maybe two. If you get another flat, you're in trouble. So I really like these glueless patches from Park Tool. And these guys are about 1 inch square. They give you a piece of sandpaper to rough things up. And I've used these to patch tents, patch raincoats, patch all kinds of things. Super small, super easy to use. And you just put them in there and hang on to them. For bigger gaps or bigger cuts in the sidewall, we like these Park Tool tire boots. And this, you can just peel off the back and you put that on the inside of your tire, peel the top off, and then when you inflate the tube goes in there and pushes out against the side of the tire. So if you have like a 1/2-inch gash, that'll take care of that real quick for you. Talked about all those items. I carry a lock with me. So Randy had talked earlier about ducking into the store. I always feel really uncomfortable doing that. As he was saying, it's you sort of sometimes you can just sort of barge into the store and sort of park it in the coffee shop or something. And you don't ask if you can do that. You just say, "Hey, I'm leaving my bike here and I'll be right back in 5 minutes." And that's a good place to do it. But I always like to have the extra lock. If you're traveling with a group, you can share the lock with multiple people. And of course, the other way to keep people from getting in your bike is you hang dirty socks and all kinds of other things on there, and that people just won't mess with it. That so there's dirty socks hanging on the handlebars. That's just that turns them off right away. So that'll work. The other thing that I always carry with me on my bike, just riding around, is a small first aid kit. So this goes right in my bike and in the back of my everyday bag. I've got some Band-Aids in there, a couple of antiseptic wipes, antibacterial, a couple of zip ties, those little Advil and Tylenol packets that people get in their running race packets. Throw those in there, maybe some ice cream money. But that's how big your day-to-day first aid kit should be. Nice and small like that. I usually end up patching somebody else with the Band-Aids, and it pays for itself in coffee and beer when I get back. As you start, so that's kind of all the bike stuff that you'll need. And this is kind of everyday short ride bike types of things. So you want to carry those with you all the time. As you start to go on a longer trip, we start to talk about the 10 essentials, which is kind of a mountain climbing concept. But they talk about navigation, sun protection, illumination, first aid, repair kit, way to make fire, shelter, nutrition, hydration, and insulation. And if you just sort of go down that, take through that list and look at all those items, those are the things that you'll need, and you'll scale them up or scale them down depending on how big your adventure is. So number one on there is navigation. So bring your map. Your map's going to tell you all kinds of great information about how far it is to the next place. Is there a store where you can resupply? Where's the next water stop? So you're not dragging along too much water. And by having this extra knowledge, you can take less stuff. So it's less stuff to put on your bike, less stuff to drag around with you. You've got that information, and that's better than having all this extra gear. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about clothing. I'm sort of following along in this the list, and this is the list that we use from our bike shop when people are doing some of the overnight tours with us. And I think Jody pasted the link to that in the presentation. So you're welcome.
And I can put it up on the screen now too.
Yeah. So we've been sort of following roughly along with this list, and we have two columns in here. One is the van supported trip. The other is the unsupported trip where you're carrying everything. And it kind of roughly goes along with the type of equipment you would take if you're staying in hotels versus camping out along the way. So you're welcome to click on that link and borrow that. Hopefully the COVID masks required at the top goes away in about a year or so. So we just kind of worked through the first page on this. Mostly looking at the things that are going to be on your bike that you should be taking with you anyway. And then as you start to go on some bigger trips, that's when you start to think about, okay, I'm going to need some rain gear. I might need sunglasses for sun protection, starting to layer on some things. Whatever you have will work. Now, one thing you don't want to do is cotton. So cotton gets wet. It takes much more energy to dry that cotton. So whether it's a cotton t-shirt or cotton socks, don't use that. So any artificial fabric, wool is great. Merino wool is even better because it doesn't stink after 3 or 4 days on the trail. or it stinks less after 3 or 4 days on the trail. And I would say go with whatever you like to ride in. So if you like padded bike shorts, if you like the mountain bike shorts that are baggier, those work. Some people like to clip in. I always like to clip in pedals, but other people swear by flat pedals. So pick what works for you, and you just don't take a lot of stuff. So most people err on the side of taking too much stuff. And on a longer trip, you'll see people pull into the post office and they're shipping back all these expensive things that they bought at home. So in terms of clothing, you need 1 pair of socks to wear and 1 pair to pack. And you should have enough clothing that you can put everything on for the coldest day that you expect and stay warm. And as Randy was saying earlier, yeah, get a nice raincoat. So it's got to be waterproof, not just water resistant. And that'll make your time a lot better. So next thing on the bike is hydration. So you can have a water bottle with you. So whether you want to run water bottles on the frame this way, you can do that. If you do that, you can run one of these half packs on the top. So you could, for instance, you could put a pack there, carry your tools there, carry your water, 1 bottle there, 1 bottle there, and you want to keep the heavy things as close to the bottom as you can. So all these extra tools, water, those heavy items are going to go in there, lighter items in the back and on the front. And there are lots of different ways to carry these, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Snacks and water, they have to be easy to get at. So I like the little top 2 bag up here. So I keep my snacks in there, Cliff Bars, trail mix, things like that. And I eat while I ride. So I have a Ziploc bag with my trail mix, and I just flop that open. I just get a handful and just eat while I'm riding. My other favorite piece of gear is the this Revelet feed bag. And this has all these other miscellaneous items in there. So I've got my sunscreen in there. I've got my Purell for my hands, chapstick in there. I have a pen. I have a power bar in there. I got my bug repellent in there. So all these things are kind of in one spot, and this has room for a water bottle, or it'll swallow a whole Powerade bottle. And this bag can go on pretty much any bike and just fits up there like that. And you'll see some of the elite adventure racers that fill that thing out with French fries and just eat those while they're riding. So really like this. The other thing is you will need a first aid kit. So we talked about the little first aid kit for daily use. So that has a couple of Band-Aids, 2 Advils. You'll want something just a little bit bigger than that, a little more group oriented. And I always keep my repair things and my first aid things in the same bag. So I have an extra lighter. I have some needle and thread that I snagged from the nice hotel when I was there. A couple of zip ties. All these items that are in my bike bag. Maybe a few more Advils. Bigger Band-Aid. A couple of fire starters, which are very small but really nice when you need to get that fire going. And so what we're doing with a lot of these items, like the fire starters, outdoor writer Andrew Skirka talks about 3 different things that you can change off between. He talks about fitness, skills, and equipment. And so a lot of times you can, if you don't have real good fire building skills, you cheat and you get yourself the fire starters. If you're super fit, then you can cover more distance between campsites, so you can go with less food and water. So you have to kind of learn to balance those and play your strengths and cover your weaknesses. So a lot of these items will sort of help you do that. The fire starter being one. And so you can also get yourself a first aid kit that's kind of already made. And the other thing that's nice is that we've seen a lot of items come out here today. What you want to do is, instead of having 30 different items on your list, it's 1 first aid kit, that's it. And you pack that and you're done. There's like 1 toiletries bag, and that's it. So that's everything that you need. It's your toothbrush, your wilderness wash, chamois butter, some Advil, some Desitin or something, whatever your medications are, and you want to label them when you put them in there. And the toothbrush is not cut off to save weight, it's cut off because it fits in that little bag a lot better. So you want to compartmentalize these things. So keep them all in little bags so that it's like, wait, where's my toothbrush? Oh, I also need something else. It's all in that bag. I need the first aid repair bag. It's all in that bag, all in one nice little piece. Okay, so we talked about, and yeah, let's go to, we're going to jump on to the kitchen now. So Randy talked about his kitchen, and he's using the alcohol stove, which is super light and very nice. I like the MSR Pocket Rocket. It weighs in at about 3 ounces. Gas canister on there, and sort of no muss, no fuss. It's going to work every time. And I cook right in that. That's the only pot that I take right there. So that's my kitchen. I don't carry an extra fork. I just carry one really big spoon. And the reason that spoon is really big is so I can reach down the bottom of these backpacking meals and get everything out of there. And then everything folds up real nicely for me. That goes in there, slide my lighter in there. That all gets put together. And my fuel goes in my pot/coffee cup and gets folded up. And that's my kitchen. That's it right there. And that's all I really need. In terms of food, we talked about you can use some of these backpacking meals that are really nice, especially if you're getting started, or it's really nice to have something nice and spicy. The pad thais are a really good one. So nice and spicy on a cold night. You can also go the dirt bag route and you get some ramen noodles, one of these Jif peanut butter things, and a fire sauce from Taco Bell. That and one handful of peanuts, and you got your own pad thai. So we ate a ton of ramen noodles on the trip. That's it. No one gets sick of that. The rice things, you'll see some of them sort of show up in the hiker and biker boxes. Headlamp, something really small, like a black diamond headlamp, just so you can see at night to move things around if you're camping. And that's my bedroom. So my tent, I took the poles out. The poles are going to go in by my down tube, so they'll get slid into my frame bag. The rest of the tent gets folded kind of shorter and stuffed into my front bag. And in here I've got my sleeping bag and my Thermarest X-Lite pad that Randy and I both agree on is worth every penny for a good night's sleep. And then this bag goes up in the front. And I try to keep things kind of functional, so I'll try to keep everything for your night goes into that bag. Everything that you're going to eat, for me, I keep it in the back in the seat bag. And that's also the bear bag. So if I have all kinds of food in there and Snickers bars, that's going up in the tree so that the bear doesn't get it. So keep things sort of functional that way. And we're starting to look at some different ways to kind of carry things on your bike. And it's not as easy as if you're backpacking, you just go to the backpacking store and you say, I'm going ultra light, or I want to kind of go mid-range and I need to go for 5 days. And they say, okay, you need a 50-liter pack. Because what starts to happen here is it has to fit on your bike. If there are braze-ons and mount points, you can mount things on your bike. If there are not, then you have to start looking at some other things. If you can put a pack like this on, that only works if you have enough room between your wheel and that bag. So as you get shorter, like riders under, like a rider under 5.5 feet on a 29er bike, you're going to start to run out of room there. So that's a little bit tricky. You have to kind of think about all these things at the same time. How much gear do you have? How do you need to carry it, and what type of bike, and how big are you as a rider? So this setup works for someone who's relatively light packer and 5.5 feet or better. If you want to go conventional panniers, these are going to be a little bit heavier, but these give you a ton of packing space and they can fit on the back of the bike that way. And some of these new nicer ones have a handle on them so they come off and you can have like all your sleeping gear on one side and keep your food in the other side and keep things separated that way.
Hey, Bill,
So other things you can do, go ahead.
I met a guy once and I knew exactly what he was doing. He had traditional 4 panniers, 4 different colors, because when you get like matching equipment, like all red panniers or all black panniers, you're like, now where's that bagel? I mean, you're there, which pannier is it in?
Oh yeah.
Because he had Ortlieb, 1 red, 1 yellow, one black, 1 blue.
Yeah.
That's what I'll do next time.
It's that organization thing. So it has to do with where is all your, and after a couple of days, it sort of comes together. But the first time you end up tearing everything apart to find that Snickers bar that's like down in here or something. So yeah, and the other thing you can do is there are some hacks that work very well. So if you have a rack in the back, you can get something like a dry bag and put it on there. So this is just a plain old canoeing dry bag. Put all your stuff in there. It's heavy duty. And then these guys are just wonderful. These are belay straps, and it's like a stretchy rubber band type strap that hangs on and is super tight. So you can strap these, use these to strap anything on your bike. So if you were to start out with like just a rack on the back, you could put a lot of your gear in there, put that on the rack. You could do another dry bag with the belay straps and put that up on the handlebars. So that would work too. So these are all things where you don't have to go out and buy a whole lot of stuff to get started. So yeah, a dry bag, some straps. Sometimes by the time you get it, if you don't already have them, by the time you get these, you're kind of halfway to getting a nice handlebar bag or something. But in general, most people take way more than they need. The other way to go, you can go with a backpack. If you are using a backpack, try to keep the lightest stuff you can in here. So this would be, even though you're not going to need it, put your sleeping bag in there, put your sleeping pad in there, down puffy or a fleece jacket. So keep the light stuff in your sleeping bag, keep the heavy things on there. And it's because it pulls on your shoulder and it also puts more weight on your butt. And frequently that's the thing that's the weak point for everybody. One other option is they make some small backpacks like this. This is one that I'll carry. It weighs about an ounce or 2, but it's enough that when you go into town, you can fit a calzone and a couple of beers in there and drag some real food with you back to camp. So all of a sudden I've got some extra capacity at the store, maybe a couple of real oranges, things like that. So sort of seen a lot of different ways to carry things. A lot of different pieces of equipment. In general, keep it as small as you can, keep it as light as you can, and we want you to start small and start right now. So do that quick overnighter, maybe practice with your gear doing a day trip. So put everything on your bike, ride out, set up your tent. Yeah, a lot of people will talk to you, and including the ranger. You weren't going to camp there tonight. No, just set my tent up. But do that, practice all these skills and get out as frequently as you can, and then commit to making all this happen. So pick a weekend, tell your friends, I'm going. I got the hotel booked. You're welcome to come with me if you want, but I'm going for sure. And if you're afraid of camping, you're in the hotel and you have your reservation and you know where you're going, and you go, but get it done, get those little pieces started, and you'll be amazed how confident you are and how good it feels when you come back, especially pulling off one of those things like that. I think that's the best feeling out there, is actually pulling off something that you didn't think you could do. So you'll come back the next day, you will be so stoked to go out and do something. So I'd like to just leave you with that point. Start small, start now, and make it happen. Yeah, back to you, Matt.
Yeah, well, thanks, Bill and Randy. It's a tremendous amount of experience and advice for all of us who are interested in getting into these bike touring. We did have just a few questions, and and I'll just kind of go through this quickly. We still have a few more minutes. And if other folks want to just chime in and ask, you can unmute yourself. But we did have a few questions, so let me kind of run through those real quick. Bill, what's the bag near your saddle called? What is that?
Oh,
That
this
name?
is, yes, so this is a Revelant seat pack. This is the Terrapin. And the thing that I like about the Terrapin, when I get where I'm going, I can just unhook this and the whole bag comes out. It's like a holster. So that comes out. I unhook this and the whole thing slides out, and that's my dry bag.
Excellent.
So,
And what-
so that's my kitchen, my first aid kit, all the stuff that smells really tasty to bears. And that goes up in the tree at the end of the day.
That's smart. On your bike pump, you guys, great idea of putting some tape on that you might use. But what's the actual pump name? Do you know the manufacturer or maker of it?
Is a Lezine pressure drive. And
Okay.
I like this one because it's relatively high volume and you can fill up a mountain bike tire pretty fast and get a lot of pressure, and you're not trying to balance that wheel on the top. So that's a real nice device. The other pump I like is there's a small pump that also works with a CO2. And I think one's called the Ninja, and Bontrager makes one too. So this one, I can thread this one on here, and then this goes threaded on your bike. Test this one at home before you get out there in the wild and try to use it, because there's one left-handed thread on this one somewhere that I have to sit there and think through every time I use it. But it's that same idea where I can either pump or use the CO2 on. So that's a nice idea too.
Okay. And Randy, what was your thermarest? What's the
Neo Air is the one that's 3 inches of fluff, 3 inches of heaven. One word, Neo Air. I'm kind of biased against the CO2 myself. I carry a pump. In Ohio, it might not be the case so much, but out west where there are stickers on the road, you know, you can roll into an area and have 3 holes just like that. And yeah, I carry a patch kit because I'd be out of tubes by that point. I'm not going to carry more than 3 tubes.
Well, we ran tubeless and we had 0 flats, 3 of us, for 2,500 miles.
Yeah, you're just you're freakish, Bill, to have 0 flats.
I swear by tubeless.
And that's mountain bike.
Yeah, so we were running mountain bike tires, set up tubeless.
I'm
The
running
closest
road
we
bike
had-
tire, road tire.
Yeah, road tires I'm not sold on just because they're lighter tubes, they're easy to change, and I just get off and do those. And yeah,
One of the things about mounting a bag on your behind your seat is you have to make sure you have the right seat post. I don't think any carbon seat post is recommended for a rear bag like that. And,
Yeah, and
one more thing I'd add is wear bright clothing on the top. Just 2 days ago, I was on Ohio to Erie Trail, and I couldn't quite make out what was on the trail, and it was someone passing through with all black bike and panniers and a gray T-shirt on, and you're just not very visible when you're all in dark. So I mean, I know the mountain bikers tend to do a little bit more on the dark side, but don't buy black rain jacket is my bias. And just for
agree?
safety.
Be visible. You know, with bike lights,
visible.
tail lights, especially if you're near the road. So, did anybody else have questions on our any of our
Yes,
participants? Go for it. Go ahead and speak.
stealth camping.
Yes.
All
what-
right. You know, I kind of got in my world travels kind of 2 philosophies. Either I want multiple people to know where I am or nobody to know where I am. And it kind of depends on where my degree of security and knowledge of the place I'm traveling. But I generally want to get out of sight. And if you leave no trace, when you get up and leave in the morning, I've never been told to leave any place. Now, there's a lot of times I get permission ahead of time, like at a firehouse. I'll ask, can I camp in the back? Sure, yeah, go ahead. Or a church, a rural church, can I camp out back?
Love it.
they'll give you permission. So out west, that's far more common because you got all this BLM land or national forest. Out east, like on Ohio to Erie Trail, it's almost all private property as you're going along there. So you'd want to seek permission for camping there. There are some campsites like in London. If we get contacted at the Coast Gap Trail, we say, sure, you can camp in Howard along the trail. But
And even when I'm camping, I'm completely legal, like I'll be in Pennsylvania on state forest. I always like to be where no one can see me. So even if it's like an area with like picnic tables and you're allowed to camp, I just like to go back into the woods a little bit, just so I'm not real visible. So visible when I ride, but I like to be kind of a little bit less conspicuous when I'm camping.
if you want to think a little bit beyond Ohio to Erie Trail, like what's it look like to bike across America or something like that, I have a Flickr account, Flickr. There's no E in it, and it's public. And I post photographic essays of my trips across America or Europe. You get to see how I outfit my bike. I ride a traditional touring bike, steel bike with braze-ons, as opposed, and so I'm hanging stuff kind of old school on that. But you'd see pictures of that on that. So you just kind of Google Randy Kronk, and you have to dig down through there a little bit, and you should be able to find my Flickr account.
We had one question about the weight distribution. I know, Bill, you mentioned keep your heavier stuff low, but any other thoughts on this? How do you kind of distribute that gear across your bike?
Yeah, I like to keep it kind of balanced front and back, to maybe a little more in the back, but as low as I can go. And whatever's on the handlebars, you don't want that swinging too much. And the best thing to do with weight is just don't put it on there. All those fancy high-tech things that you buy that are expensive, they all add weight to your bike. Every little titanium spoon, it's extra weight. So just sort of think of, what do I need for an overnight picnic? And then Ohio to Erie Trail, I'm just going to go 2 overnight picnics, and I'm going to stop in the store. I'm going to stop at a gas station and resupply. So get used to that thing of being able to resupply along the trail, dry things along the trail. There's always that half-hour warm, sunny time where you can always get your stuff dried and get it packed back in again. So just leave it at home.
Yeah. What
There's a
about
question about electric plugs and charging. When I tour, I put my phone on airplane mode, and you can go multiple days without charging it, because I'm not going to use Google Maps. I'm going to use paper maps from Adventure Cycling or Ohio to Erie Trail. And I generally don't have my running lights on all the time. I'm going to have a bright top on, a white helmet. I'm going to have an orange, not a slow moving vehicle sign, but an orange pattern on the back of my bike that's kind of neon orange. And I ride with a mirror, so I still have sufficient hearing to hear stuff coming up. Electric cars have changed that a little bit. I was in the back roads of Tennessee this spring, and a Tesla came up on me and kind of snuck up on me. But that mirror gives you a whole lot of security by knowing those people see me and they're moving over.
Yeah, ditto here. My phone is off. If I navigate, I use an old school GPS with lithium-ion batteries. I get 10 days out of a set of lithium-ion batteries, even keeping them on. So put it in low power mode, no backlight, turn off gloss NOS, and I have no trouble navigating that way, and my phone is completely off. And 5 days later,
I have a flashing light on the rear, but I don't run it all the time. But when I get in a dark forest or on a foggy morning, or it's getting late in the day, then I turn it on. Or tunnels, which you don't have out east here, but well, you don't have in Ohio, but out west you can go through some pretty long tunnels on mountain roads. So,
yep.
When you're touring, it's really not a big deal to stop. It's a rest break. So to stop and turn on your flashing light, or to, you need those micro breaks. I certainly travel with a lot more ibuprofen than Bill does. He talked about throwing 2 tablets in there. I mean, like, that's what I have for breakfast.
There is a big bottle in the personal gear one, if you notice.
Okay.
And anytime you have to get off and push your bike, that's a break for your butt. So I have no problem getting off and pushing the bike. And that's the other nice thing about a setup like this is if you do have to get off and push, you don't have the panniers whacking you in the leg. So when you're pushing up 16% grade or something, it's out of the way. And even Pennsylvania, you can get some of those. So Moshannon and Queehana Wilds, there's some steep Jeep trails out that way.
Pretty serious there in Utah too. I'm going to guess that some of you might have e-bikes. They are really, I can imagine them someday for myself. Not there yet, but they've just, for some people, they've opened up the world. I mean, for some of you, 20 miles was like your knees were stressed because of perhaps age or something like that. And all of a sudden, an e-bike lets you do 40. Here in Knox County, I see this. I'll bet there's 12 to 20 Amish people that ride from Millersburg to Mount Vernon on a Friday or Saturday every weekend over the summer, and they spend a night in the hotel and they go back, and it's at least 3 generations. And the e-bike has just kind of made that possible for maybe somebody carrying a load like a toddler with them or grandpa and grandma. So they're doing 50. Millersburg to Mount Vernon is exactly 40 miles with a few good hills in there if you're going over Botto Pass. But the e-bikes really level the ground. And I think they have a range, depending on how new it is, up to probably 75 miles on some of them, how much you use it.
Yeah, and hearing Randy talk about these different generations going, when you get your group together, get as much diversity in there as you possibly can. So older people, younger people, men, women, mix of colors and everything else, and throw in a couple of teenagers. As long as everyone's okay with riding the same amount of mileage, it really makes for an interesting group. You have a lot more fun, a lot more conversations. And
Now, when you put people together,
go ahead.
when you put people together, the biggest risk of an accident is them running into each other, lapping tires, or somebody stopping and not letting the others know they're stopping. So you really have to up the communication and alertness when you start riding with groups.
And you want that group should go out for an easy day ride together, just sort of see how it goes. And then if that works okay, then that group does an overnighter. So you want to practice with that group the same way that you practice with all your equipment and all your skills. So a little bit at a time. And frequently people, that first 1 hour in, they go, yeah, this is not for me. Turn around, let's get the car, and we're done.
Another question there I see is about seats. You go to a bike shop and you often see the Lycra skin racing kind of posters up there and pushing it, but our local bike shop doesn't cater to touring. So I'm currently landed on Terry seats, Terry. They started out Terry making women's bikes. They had a smaller front wheel and a larger rear wheel, but Terry makes a men's touring saddle and a woman's touring saddle, and I'm really pleased with it. I've got it on a couple of bikes now, that Terry saddle. And there's no reason not to buy a split saddle these days, at least, I don't know about women, but at least for the men and probably for the women too. If you're riding a saddle without a split in it, time to change.
So some people swear by those Brooks saddles.
Yeah, they can swear.
Yeah, I cannot ride
I
that.
swear at them.
And the padded shorts help a lot.
Yeah, I haven't ridden without a chamois a pad. If you're new to cycling, it's called a chamois because 40 years ago, it literally was lamb's or goat skin chamois that was in it before the new synthetic stuff came along and made them padded.
And the other note on
30-day love it or leave it.
Other note on chamois.
I just saw the question pop up.
Yeah, other note on chamois, as soon as you get into camp, get it off. Into something else. So change, get everything nice and clean. It's that self-care thing. Get the bug repellent on, get the chamois off, get that out there drying in the sun.
If you're going to look for a touring bike, kind of like long-term, you know, the next 5 or 10 years, I can tell you in my travels, particularly out west where you get on some highways or, I mean, some real bike routes where people are kind of doing more than just weekend stuff. The long haul trucker by Surly is hands down the most common bike out there. I'm not trying to sell you. I ride a Trek 520. They made them for 40 years, a steel frame. If I had only one bike, that's probably the bike I'd keep as a touring bike. But if you're going to tour regularly, consider getting a touring bike, not trying to make your road bike into your touring bike or your commuting bike into your touring bike. Straight bars, I just know so many people that get numb fingers, particularly down here, from riding straight bars, even when they have kind of ergonomic ends on them. So I'm with Bill back there on drop bars. You place your hands on the hoods like this. And if you look at my bike, there's probably 3 layers of tape on it so that the bar is giving me more surface area. And you can up it if you're building your own bike to actually get bars that aren't round anymore. They're oblong, so that you have that more surface area on your palm. But for some people, you don't know what it's going to be on riding day after day. Is it going to be your bottom? Is it going to be your shoulders, your neck? For some people, it's their hands that they're like, I want to get off this bike, you know, numb fingers. And some of that can last a long time.
Well, I think we've went a little bit past our 8 o'clock time frame, but we had a lot of good questions. Bill and Randy, I want to thank you both again for
It's a pleasure.
tell us about your experiences. For those of you who are interested in hearing our last webinar, April 20th, check your Facebook page. It's Micro Adventures on the Erie Trail. So similar topic, but short trips. So we're going to get more experience and discussion on how to do this an overnighter. So thanks again, everybody, for attending, and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank
for
you to our
inviting me.
speakers. Thank you for hosting, Matt.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
This will be on our YouTube channel.